In this video, we're going to talk about 2.1 Objective 2, where we find class widths, limits, midpoints, and boundaries. Let's go ahead and get started. Why should the number of classes in a frequency distribution be between 5 and 20? If the number of classes in the frequency distribution is not between 5 and 20, it may be difficult to detect any patterns. You get too few classes, it's hard to detect the patterns. If you get too many, it's hard to detect the patterns as well. What is the difference between class limits and class boundaries? Class limits are the least and greatest numbers that can belong in the class. Class boundaries are the numbers that separate classes without forming gaps between them. So for integer data, the corresponding class limits and class boundaries differ by 0.5, and we'll show that. We use something called class marks sometimes to do that. Determine whether the statement is true or false. If it's false, rewrite it as a true statement. In a frequency distribution, the class width is the distance between the lower and upper limits of the class. That's false. In the frequency distribution, the class width is the distance between the lower or upper limits of consecutive classes. I'll show you that later. Determine whether the statement is true or false. If it's false, rewrite it as a true statement. The difference between two consecutive midpoints is equal to the class width. That's true. The midpoint is the sum of the lower and upper limits of the class divided by 2. The distance between two consecutive lower or upper class limits is equal to the class width. So there we go. Use the given minimum and maximum data entries and the number of classes to find the class width, the lower class limit, and the upper class limit. So class width, we're going to find the range here is going to be 76 minus 12 is going to be 64. We usually want to add 1 to that number, which is going to be 65, divided by the number of classes is 7. So that number is bigger than 9. So I need to have more than 9 in each class. I'm going to have to bump it up to the next integer. So the class width is going to be 10. Lower class limits are going to be, and then we're going to start with 12. And then we're going to add 10 to that and get 22, 32, 42, 52, and 62. Make my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 72. My 7 classes there. And then this is going to be an upper limit of 21, and then 31, 41, 51, 61, 71, and 81 for my upper class limits. Let's give, given these minimum and maximum data entries here and the number of classes, find the class width, the lower limits, and the upper class limits. So our minimum is 12, my maximum is 56. Let's find the range. 56 minus 12 is going to be 44. Now let's add 1 to that to make that 45 and divide by 6. We're going to get 7.5, but we need to round that up to 8. So we're going to have 12 plus 8 is 20. Let's see, I'm going to have 6 classes. So class number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. 28, 36, 44, and 52. And then this is going to be 19. 19 plus 8 is 27, 35, 43, 51, and 59. So lower class limits are 12, 20, 28, 36, 44, and 52. Upper class limits are 19, 27, 35, 43, 51, and 59. Let's find our range is 105. So let's take 105 plus 1 is going to give me 106 divided by 8. It's going to give me 13.25. So I'm actually going to need a width of 14. So we have, that's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Start out with 17 and we add 14 to it. It's 31 plus 14 is 45 plus 14 is 59 plus 14 is 73 plus 14 is 87 plus 14 is 101 plus 14 is 115. And then this is 30. 30 plus 14 is 44. And then this is going to be 58, 72, 86, 100, 114. Add 14 to 114 to get 128. Lower class limits are going to be 17, 31, 45, 59, 73, 87, 101, and 115. Upper class limits are 30, 44, 58, 72, 86, 100, 114, and 128. All right, let's use the given frequency distribution to find the class width, class midpoints, and class boundaries. So my class width is going to be 38 minus 35 is 3. I just took 2 consecutive lower limits or 2 consecutive upper limits to find that. And the midpoint here, 35 plus 37 divided by 2 is 36. Now I can add 3 to get my next midpoint, add 3 to get my next midpoint, add 3 to get my next midpoint, and so on. And there we go. So now if I want to make them all touch each other, now I'm going to have to add 0.5 on the right and subtract 0.5 on the left. So this is going to be 34.5 to 37.5, 37.5 to 40.5, 40.5 to 43.5, 43.5 to 46.5, 46.5 to 49.5, 49.5 to 52.5, and 52.5 to 55.5. And this is what we need to do when we're going to make a histogram, because our bars need to touch on our histogram. So that's it. We'll come back next time and talk about 2.1 Objective 3. See you for the next video.